What do you think is the most played game ever? Minecraft? No. Roblox? No. Poge? No. I think it is this little game called Dino Runner that you can play in Chrome when you don't have internet. So today I will show you how you can make your own Dino Runner in Godot. First, I am going into the project settings, and under Window I set the width to 300 and the height to 100 pixels. Now we can start with the real game. First, we are going to add the background. For that, create a character body 2D and under it add a sprite 2D. In the inspector, add the texture for it. Next, add a collision shape 2D and make it a rectangle. This shape has the function that the player can later walk on it. The trick in Dino Runner is that the player does not move to the right. Instead, everything else moves to the left. To do that, we add a script to our sprite 2D. In it, add a variable called speed and set it to 150 and make a process function. In it, we move the region rect position to the left every frame. Currently, the background moves, but it does not repeat endlessly. To fix that, go to the sprite inspector and set the region width to 300 and height to 100. Also under texture, enable repeat. Now the background repeats endlessly. Next, we add a player. For that, create a new scene with a character body 2D, and under it add a collision shape 2D. For the collision shape 2D, make it a rectangle, and an animated sprite 2D. Add sprite frames and create a new animation called Run. Set its FPS to around 20 and enable autoplay. Also, add an animation called Jump. For that, you can just use the first frame of your Run animation. Now we add a script to the character body 2D. First, define a constant called jumper velocity and set it to 300. Now add a physics process function. If the player does not touch the floor, add gravity times delta to the velocity. Now let's handle the jump. If the player presses U-accept, which is space, and is on the floor, then set the Y velocity to our jump velocity. If the player is not on the floor, and it does not already play the jump animation, play the jump animation. Else, if the animation is not the run animation, play the run animation. Lastly, add move and slide at the bottom. Now create a new scene called main and add our background and the player. Now the player can jump and plays the right animation. Now we add the cactus that the player needs to jump over. Create a new scene with a character body 2D, and under it add a spritty 2D with the texture of a cactus. Also add a collision shapey 2D and make it a capsule. I make it a little smaller than the cactus so that the player can jump easier over it. Now add a script to the character body 2D, and in it we do the same as with the background. But we also add that when the cactus X position is 100, it gets deleted so it does not exist forever. In Dino Runner there are 3 types of cactus, so let's add the other ones. For that, copy your cactus scene and paste it into a new scene. Add a new sprite 2D and make its texture another cactus, and also adjust the collision shape. For the third cactus, do the same. Now we add a spawner that automatically adds cactuses to the main scene. For that, add a node 2D to the main scene, and under it a marker 2D. Move this one to the right of the screen. This is where the cactuses will spawn. Also add a timer. Now add a script to the spawner. In it, first add variables for the marker and the timer. Also make an array where you preload all the cactus scenes. In the ready function, call randomize. Then add a function called spawn cactus. There, pick a random cactus and instantiate it. Set its position to the position of the marker and add it as a child. Now we add a function called startSpawnTimer and set its wait time to a random value between 2 and 2.5 seconds, then start the timer. Call this function in the ready function and in the spawnCactus function. Lastly, connect the timer timeout signal to the spawn function so that when the timer runs out, it spawns a cactus. Now we spawn random cactuses, but we still cannot die from them, so let's change that. First, I am adding an animation for the player dying. Then I go into the player script and add a variable called isDead and set it to false. Also add a function called die. If the player is dead, return. Else, set isDead to true, play the death animation, and pause the game. Now we need to check if the player touches something, and if that's the case, call die. But now the player dies instantly because he touches the ground. To fix that, go to the cactus scenes and in the Groups tab add a new group called Cactus. Do the same for the other cactus scenes. Now go back into the player script. Then before calling die, check if the collision the player touches is in the cactus group. Now the player only dies if he touches a cactus. Now let's add a score system. For that, add a label. Then add a script to the main scene. In it, make a variable for the score label and create a variable called score and set it to 0. In the .process function, increase the score every frame and set the label text to the score. You can't really see the text, so I am making the text black and also making it smaller. In the game, the player can sneak, so let's add that. First, go to the project settings and under Input Map add a new input called Sneak and set its input to Shift. Now go to the Player Animated Sprite 2D and add a new animation for Sneak. Then go to the player script and add a variable for the Collision Sheppy 2D and add a variable called Sneak and set it to false. In the physics process, check if the input is the sneak input. Then check if the player already sneaks. If not, set sneak to true and change the collision shape size to 20 by 12 pixels and set its position to y equals 4. Also check if the sprite does not already play the sneak animation, then play the sneak animation. Now check if the player input is not sneak and the player is sneaking. Set sneak to false and set the collision shape back to normal. Now the player can sneak. The game also has flying dinos, so let's add that. Create a new scene with a character body 2D, and under that an animated sprite 2D and add its texture. Also add a collision shape 2D and adjust it. Also put it in the cactus group so the player dies if he touches the bird. Also add the cactus script to the character body 2D. Now we move the sprite and the collision shape a bit down, around 2 pixels. This was the bird the player needs to jump over. Now let's also add the one the player needs to sneak under. So copy the scene and paste it into a new one. This time we move the sprite and collision shape to around YTOS 6. Now the player has to sneak under it to survive. That's it. Now we got a fully functioning Dino Runner game in Godot. Hope you like this tutorial and comment if you have any problems.